Oh boy, here we go. Here is where I become an actual harsh critic. This is insane to me. IGN.com gave episodes 7 to 9 a 10 out of 10 and called it a masterpiece. What? Did we watch two different things? Here are the notes I took on my phone while watching. And I'm going to go through all of these. Now, just to let you know, these notes I did record with my voice, so you will notice quite a few spelling and grammar errors. Don't mind that. Just take note of how many notes I took during the show. And this was just the first episode. I gave up after the first episode of taking notes because it was that bad. Unfortunately, I found no strengths in these episodes, and I cannot believe anyone would think this is good TV. I can understand liking it, enjoying it, but even then, I think you'd still say to yourself, yeah, it's not the best, but I enjoyed it for what it was. So let's get into this and talk about what was weak. Major spoilers. I'm not holding anything back on this one. So obviously, like I said, there are no strengths. So here we go. It's all weaknesses. You had so many opportunities to set up the Yavin base. Show at any time could have been a quick clip of Andor or anyone landing on Yavin and starting to establish a base here. But you telling me that Andor visits once, is captured by a rebel group, which he had to escape from, and was only able to do so because they played rock, paper, scissors while a monster ate them, and he decided to go back and say to his rebel friends, hey, I know a good planet to set up a base on. It's got dumbasses that will attack you, creatures that will eat you, but we can set a base on it. No, instead we just suddenly are there. The episode opens on Yavin as if we are expected to believe they set up a whole base. I'm talking, they've got the temple set up, they've got ships, they've got all kinds of technology and equipment. They've got an entire base built outside of the temple that looks like it's been in construction for quite some time. And they did all of this and brought hundreds of people here, all within a 1-year span, without sparking any interest from the Empire, who is watching the comings and goings from their home planets. What? We also get Andor hurt at the very start of it, right from the beginning. Guess that's the running theme of the show. Send Andor off on missions off screen because we, the viewer, are here to watch him spout horrible dialogue and do nothing more than that. I'm reminded more and more of the show Mayor of Kingstown. I actually really liked the show at first, but quickly realized the entire show hinges on the viewer being so distracted by hunk of the week Jeremy Renner that they don't realize nothing happens for hours at a time. I'm sure if you got me numbers of every word Jeremy Renner says in the show, his top lines comprising of 70% of his dialogue would be, I'll take care of it, or I'll handle it, or I'll see what I can do. From there, he goes off to have the very same conversation with another character, and that's all the show does. Every once in a while, someone dies, but beyond that, he just goes around saying he'll handle whatever issue it is the character has without doing anything. He just goes character to character to character. Oh yeah, I'll take care of that. I'll handle it. I'll handle it. I got so tired of it. And that's exactly what Andor is becoming. I don't even want to call it Andor anymore. I want to call it Star Wars The Alliance, because Andor isn't even the main character of this show anymore. Next thing, how did we end up with a Force healer in this show? What is happening? Firstly, Force healing is a very rare ability, and very few Jedi even had it, let alone knew about it. Top that off with the galaxy has turned the Jedi into a myth due to the Empire stamping them out and killing anyone who so much as mentioned Jedi. It was so bad that people legit believe Jedi never existed in the original trilogy, which is only a year away at this point. Now you're telling me the Rebels had a Force healer the whole time? The only thing worse in this scene is the dialogue. Did the writer's 5-year-old write this? Did he go home and be like, you know what, I just can't think of anything good to say. Here you go, little Johnny. Can you write me some dialogue? Because that's what it sounds like. How does this Force healer not know who Andor is? She is legit living in a base he helped found, he helped build, and he helped move the Resistance into. He is a huge part of the Resistance, and a huge part of the reason why it's still standing and how big it's become. How does she not know who he is? She then looks back to her group that she was just with a moment ago to tell them that she'll be back in a moment. What the hell is happening here? She literally just stepped away from this group, walked 10 feet away from them. I'm pretty sure that they know she won't be back in a moment. They watched her walk away. Then she asks Andor the same question worded differently, like she didn't just ask him that. What is happening in this conversation? Who is sitting there in a writer's room writing this down and thinking, oh man, this is great dialogue. This is game changing. This is ridiculous and retarded. How has it taken over a year for the Empire to ramp up security on Gorman? Just how? Anyone, please, someone answer me this. The heist happened a year ago, and it was far from secret. Apparently, the Gormans have laid low since then and not done anything else to disturb or, poke the bear, as it were, with the Empire. What happened to all the setup in the past 3 episodes? They legitimately set up Cyril as a spy who was aiding the Resistance, so it egged them on to do unlawful things against the Empire, which would give them cause to take over the planet. That was your setup. And all of that is wiped clean by the fact that all of a sudden, Cyril has no idea. It was like his memory was completely erased. They just completely abandoned this setup in favor of saying, yeah, Gormans gave up, so we are just going to take over the planet anyway. Cyril, again, suddenly his mind is rewired. He knew he was feeding the Resistance information in an effort to get an in with them and to report back to the Empire on what they were doing and their movements. He knew all of this. He was doing all this. The only thing he did not know was the Empire's grander plan of utilizing this in order to stamp out the Gormans, period. Not just the Resistance, but the Gormans as a whole, so they could take over their planet. That's the only part of this plan he did not know. Now, all of a sudden, he actually disagrees with the Empire on doing this and seems to think he was there to find another Resistance that were not a part of the Gormans. Since when? When did this happen? How did this happen? Did we miss significant chunks of the story in the year that you didn't show? Because if so, then clue us in on it a little bit. Have some lines of dialogue that fill in some things that happened in the year that we just didn't see. Because you just don't. You don't acknowledge that a year even passed. They use this to make Cyril turn on Deborah, and this just feels so unbelievable and so undeserved. You legit make him excited to be doing what he was doing just 2 episodes ago, and now he's completely against it to the point of choking Deborah out. Again, who wrote this? Please, for the love of God, go back to writing school. Another thing that just completely baffled me, how are K2 units suddenly impervious to blaster fire? Moreover, if they are, what the hell does Andor think he's going to do to the unit when they reawaken it on Yavin 4 at the end and are scared of it at first? He's pointing a blaster at it like he's going to be able to do something with it when he just brought it back from a planet where he shot it multiple times doing 0 damage. Wow. First off, no one in Star Wars was ever worried about rebooting a reprogrammed robot. Secondly, a reprogrammed robot still boots up like a normal robot. It just turns on. This whole acting like a Frankenstein being brought to life was just dumb, made 0 sense. What also makes no sense is for Andor to even want to bring the K2 unit with him. His whole thing in that section was the city erupted into a massive war, a massive battle, and he's trying to get out alive with Wilmot. He's rushing to get out of the city before it's fully locked down and fully stamped out, right? Before everything completely goes to hell in a handbasket. And suddenly a tank rams the K2 unit, and he's like, oh, you know what? Let's take an extra 5 minutes to grab this 1-ton unit and drag it around into the tank so that I can drive off with it. 2 seconds ago, you were literally pulling Wilmon along because he wanted to go back for his girlfriend, telling him that they needed to go now. And again, he had no reason to want this K2 unit. It wasn't like he wanted the debt on it. It wasn't like it was a good piece of tech for the Resistance. You are in the middle of a war and you decide to just suddenly stop and, hey, you know what? Now's a good time to grab a K2 unit. I don't get how any of this made any sense. The payoff for Andor learning the line, Resistance are built on hope, would have been so much better if the character that delivered it died in Andor's arms. The fact that he's a forgettable character with a single line just shows how much they are stretching their smooth brains to try and write something clever. This is so bad. The Alliance says they will rewrite how Mon Mothma was saved. Have you not been fighting against this very thing for 2 whole seasons now at this point? The Alliance was legitimately built because the Empire rewrote the narrative of the Separatist War and took over the galaxy. Mon Mothma would never sit for the Alliance lying to their own people. She would legitimately call them out for doing the very thing the Empire does on a day-to-day basis. Wow. Just wow. I'm floored. Bix leaving Andor makes 0 sense. Number 1, if she leaves, he surely wouldn't stay with the rebels. How does her leaving make him want to stay more? How? Please, someone, anyone, explain to me how the very person who is keeping you in the Alliance in the first place, the one person who is the biggest reason why you fight for the Alliance, leaves the Alliance in order for you to stay with the Alliance? If that happened, if you were in love with someone and they leave you because they want you to stay where you're at, you're literally where you're at because of them, because you want to protect them, because you want to fight for them, would you stay where you're at? No, absolutely not. You have no reason. They left. The whole reason you're there, one of the biggest reasons in your life why you're there fighting, just left. Why are you staying there to fight? Most of the characters in this series have jumped 20 steps of character growth with no buildup, only to launch themselves a mile backwards into the atmosphere. These characters are slingshotted back and forth between character developments in ways that make 0 sense. They're gravity defying, they're physics breaking. It makes absolutely no sense, and it goes against everything that you would be taught as a writer in building and growing a character. It's called character development. You did the opposite here. Everything in this series just comes out of the blue. There is 0 build-up in this season, 0 foreshadowing. They just do things to make it line up with coming events, and they do it in a way that makes little to no sense. So yeah, that was a bit of a rant on my part, and I did kind of lie. There is a single strength in these 3 episodes. There is one single strength. But I do have to go on a rant as to why this strength is working less and less in movies nowadays. Cyril and Andor finally get a face-to-face. And it was good. This is the only thing this season that felt deserved, and it's a build-up from season 1 that we finally get paid off. I will give the show points here. However, and this is a big however, the whole trope of the badass in peril in order to keep the viewer rooting for the hero just doesn't work that much anymore, especially when Cyril is not a trained soldier. Andor shouldn't have had this hard of a time fighting Cyril here. Sure, he could put up a fight, but not much of one. Having Cyril get the drop on him works, but ultimately winning until Andor is saved by a bomb, unbelievable. Then having Cyril have Andor at point blank range and not taking the shot right away is just another bad trope. It's good to use this trope earlier in stories when the hero is in over his head and has to work really hard to become better and stronger than the main villain or just a villain. That works. That build-up works early in the season. When you are this late in the game, it just doesn't work. But Hollywood has this need to make sure the hero has the ultimate fight of their lives with every weak-ass villain. It's okay to let the hero wipe the floor with a villain. I mean, take some of the most hugely popular animes. I'll use one of my latest favorites here, Solo Leveling. Our hero is the weakest of weak at the start, but suddenly gets a second chance and trains endlessly to overpower himself. And he starts wiping the floor with villains to the point that no one is a challenge for him. And yet it still works. It's still entertaining. You still want to jump in episode after episode. You're still on the edge of your seat watching these fights, knowing full well that Jinwoo is going to win. It's enjoyable to watch the series hero go apeshit and wipe the floor with a badass villain that no one else in the world has a chance of taking down. The only time putting main characters in peril really works anymore is in stories crafted to have more than one main character, such as Game of Thrones or Walking Dead. Otherwise, just write a good story and let the viewer enjoy the main character owning the scene at the midway point and onward. They don't have to come out unharmed, but to make it seem like they can die is just unbelievable. How many Mission Impossible movies are you going to watch thinking, oh, this could be Ethan's last, even though they just announced a sequel? How many John Wick movies are you going to watch knowing like, oh yeah, and you know what, John Wick might not make it out of this one. Baba Yaga himself, the big bad boogeyman, is not going to be able to beat an entire army in this film and walk away. Come on, dude. That's kind of why some of the John Wick movies work. He is one of the ultimate badasses, and you wear him down throughout the film. It's not just one villain that is putting up the ultimate fight against him to the point where he's in peril. You know he's not in peril from one villain. You know he's not in peril from 5 villains. But when you watch him throughout an hour-long movie fighting hundreds of villains, you're suddenly getting that sense of peril of like, man, this dude's getting worn down. Okay, I believe that, he might not make it out of this one. That's what makes John Wick believable. But you also know he's going to make it in the end. You know he's going to win. Same thing with Mission Impossible. You know Tom Cruise is always going to come out on top, no matter what. That's not what makes the film enjoyable, is not knowing. Yes, you can still work that trope in certain areas and make it work and make it believable and make it interesting where you're like, oh man, I don't know if the hero's going to make it. But again, you need more than one main character in order to really pull that off. In some small cases, you could probably pull it off. But in most cases, when you have a singular main character, you know they're going to win. You know they're going to survive. Especially because we have Rogue One. So it just doesn't work. What I see coming in the future, at this point, I just don't know. And I don't really care anymore. These 3 episodes cemented the fact that this series is just not worth the time anymore. Not for me anyway. I can't say this is really for any viewer. If you're any level of Star Wars fan and you just have to watch everything to do with Star Wars, then put it on in the background while you're getting work done or taking care of the kids. It's not worth spending your time to sit down and actually enjoy because there's not much to enjoy here. I really don't understand how someone, especially a critic, can sit there and say this is a really good series. These scenes make sense. These characters have all deserved where they ended up, and the series has built up. There has been no build up. There is no deserving payoff. It's just been, hey, let's just flip the page, and we skipped 20 pages because we just didn't feel like writing it. We skipped all the build-up because we're just going to pay it off. There is no reason to sit on the edge of your seat watching this show. And if anyone ever complains about the dialogue in the prequel series, which I won't defend, the prequel series, the prequel movies, I should say, not the prequel series. The prequel movies, yes, they had bad dialogue, especially The Phantom Menace. I will say Revenge of the Sith is far, far superior than Phantom Menace, without a doubt. Does it still have some kind of cringy lines? Sure. But if you're going to sit here and say to me that Andor Season 2 is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece, fully enjoyable, 100% every Star Wars fan should love it, and then you're going to go and turn around and say the prequel sequels had really bad dialogue, there's some kind of disconnect in your brain because this dialogue is bad. At this point, I don't think there's much defending this series anymore. I will still watch the last 3 episodes. I'm this far in anyway. Might as well. But I really can't say I am looking forward to anything to do with Star Wars after this, including Mandalorian and Grogu. I loved the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian. I thought the 3rd season was all right. It kind of went off the rails a little bit. Kind of lost sight of the plot, I guess. And the rumors I've heard from Mandalorian and Grogu, the movie, don't really have me too excited. And between that and the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka Tano, I just don't have any excitement over Star Wars anymore, which is really sad considering I grew up with Disney and I grew up with Star Wars. We used to joke in my household that Star Wars was our Bible because we would watch it so often. I still have the original VHSs with the original artwork on them. We would watch them at least once a week. I love this series, and I love Disney. Who doesn't? Who didn't when they were a kid? Some of the greatest fairy tales of all time. to be here, sitting here, bashing on not only Star Wars, but also Disney as something that has heavily declined. It's not satisfying. It's not something I want to do. It's depressing. I want to watch good Star Wars movies. I want to watch good Disney movies. I want to sit back and enjoy them and say to critics that bash them, they're out of their minds. But those are just my unpopular opinions. So if you got some rose-colored glasses that are a completely different lens than mine, please feel free to share your rose-colored glasses with me and show me your perspective, because my rose-colored glasses are thick and tinted heavily.